If you grew up in America, you remember Dare.
Kid, I really want to let kids know that illegal drugs are bad news.
Yes, David, it's true.
Okay, last time. This is your brain. This is drugs.
A police officer came to your school, opened a briefcase, and told 10-year-olds to just say no to drugs. It was huge. Presidents backed it. Celebrities backed it. By the middle of the 1990s, DARE was in 75% of all American school districts.
Yeah, but I'm talking about kids' futures. Did you know that marijuana can affect a person's physical and sexual growth?
Yes, that's quite accurate. In a laboratory test, female animals treated with the active component in marijuana experienced a 44% death rate among their offspring.
Fuck you, you're good in life.
You had a blog, we had Berettas, eh?
Our young people are helping us lead the way. Not long ago in Oakland, California, I was asked by a group of children what to do if they were offered drugs. And I answered, just say no.
Mr. Secretary, you want the schools to crack down hard on drug use, correct?
Yes, I do.
What do you want them to do?
I get angry just thinking about it makes me mad. Little kids doing drugs, it turns my stomach. That stuff hurts. It stops you from living up to your potential. It holds you back. It hurts the user. It hurts his family. And it hurts his friends. I just want to shake some sense into you kids that are using drugs and thinking about using it. So remember, don't, or else. Okay?
Drugs. The only way to stop abusing them is to stop using them.
More than 100 million Americans went through the program. Everyone learned the slogan, drug abuse resistance education. But what if the program was never really about resisting drugs at all?
The U.S. military effort to interdict cocaine in the air or on the high seas has been an enormously costly failure.
If I can't see you, you got something to hide. Told me all I ever do is fucking lie. Release you happy, dog, bag the yo. My mama helped my daddy bag the dope. That's real love. I'm searching for some real love.
It's yours?
No,
My mother said she found it in your closet.
I don't know. One of the guys must
Must have what?
Look, Dad, it's
Where
not.
did you get it?
Dad,
Answer me. Who taught you how to do this stuff?
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
Years later, we found out DARE did not work.
Hey guys, what are you doing?
Partying. Want a car?
Sure.
Some studies even found that DARE students were more likely than other students to experiment with drugs. People laughed it off, saying it was just another failed government program. But the truth is, the failure was known before DARE even launched.
Well, a popular drug prevention program for Hawaii's youth won't be reaching as many students as in the past. Because of a $30,000 budget cut, only 41 schools will participate in DARE, the Drug Abuse Resistance and Education Program, next year, compared to 158 schools this year.
We have to look back at the beginning. The United States had been changing. After scandals like Watergate, America realized the government was watching everyone.
If the many allegations made to this date are true, then the burglars who broke into the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee at Watergate were in effect breaking into the home of every citizen of the United States. And if these allegations proved to be true, what they were seeking to steal was not the jewels, money, or other property of American citizens, but something much more valuable.
What exactly was Watergate?
Most people know the word and virtually no one knows the issue. The common wisdom is there was a break-in by the Nixon campaign to gather intelligence illegally on the Democratic National Committee, which had offices in the Watergate Hotel in Washington, D.C., and they got caught red-handed. There were 5 of them, and then it turned out there were 2 supervisors or masterminds who had planned it, and they came to trial, and they were convicted. But the issue was, who else knew? No one believed that this was done by some renegade campaign official on his own, and it turned out they were right.
And I want to say this to the television audience. I made my mistakes, but in all of my years of public life, I have never profited from public service. I've earned every cent. And in all of my years of public life, I have never obstructed justice. And I think, too, that I can say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
New laws were passed. It was alleged if police spied on someone and no crime was committed, they had to delete the file. In Los Angeles, a police chief was climbing the ranks.
Will all the casual drug users please rise?
He was the head of a special intelligence division that built files on journalists, labor unions, anti-war activists, and even the mayor. His officers went undercover, sometimes even in schools, to build these political files.
It's very apparent that some, not all, but some of those officers are clearly out of control, and they have to ultimately be willing to take a good hard look at the leadership of the department.
He didn't destroy them. A quiet order went out to hide the files. Those files were sent to a private organization, which ramped up spying on hundreds of groups, journalists, and activists. He needed a way back into the schools. He needed a legal way to keep police officers near them without being questioned. Around this time, he met researchers from the Los Angeles School Board who ran a successful anti-drug program called Project SMART. Gates suggested having his police officers teach it. The SMART researchers had serious objections. They also told Gates something important. They had been testing two approaches. In one approach, the effective component made kids more likely to do drugs. They had dropped it from their program.
But in Oakland, programs for younger children are scarce as well, though some exist.
Someone came up to me and asked me to sell drugs, but I said no.
Street Smarts, in its first year, is a carefully crafted curriculum designed to teach elementary school children how to deal with crime, drugs, and violence. Toward the end of the instruction block, uniformed police officers run one class.
Do you think that drug sales are going to stop because one person says no? Do you think so? Because you refuse to do it. Okay, you've only done what? You've only taken care of part of the problem.
Does this approach keep kids on the straight and narrow as they enter their teens? Nobody knows. The cops in the program come from Oakland's Youth Services Division, men and women who patrol the city, especially during school hours, checking for truants and troublemakers around the schools. It's a different approach than they use in the classroom.
Where do you go to school, Eugene?
Right here.
At Oakland. Do you have a good reason to be out?
We go to work.
Okay.
But Gates did not care. When DARE was created, they kept the exact part the researchers knew made kids more likely to use drugs. Was this just a mistake, or was something else going on behind the scenes? DARE was never interested in fixing itself. They didn't even talk to a scientist until they were in trouble years later. If DARE's goal wasn't effectiveness, then what was it?
How do you feel that this contributed to a lot of what we see today with school resource officers and cops in schools? We have a pretty big problem of specifically in poor minority neighborhoods, cops arresting kids in schools and then furthering them down this cycle of incarceration and of poverty. This clearly, I think, was a gateway to that reality that we live in now.
Yeah, no, and I use this school police nexus framing, as you suggest, as a way to think about not just like the school to prison pipeline that many people are familiar with, but to see like schools and police actually working together, right? Because they're working kind of in tandem and kind of in a reciprocal relationship because they're partnered in this. It's not just like imposing. They're actually they sign memorandum of agreement to work together in with these DARE programs, but it's an entry, as you suggest, to this larger kind of longer cycle that we see. Because what I argue and what I think DARE does, because there were police in schools before this, police athletic leagues, kind of like officer friendly, but DARE brings these officers in on a kind of regular basis for 17 weeks. And it normalizes the police in schools in the ways that those prior programs didn't do to the same extent. And it's before you get school resource officers, which come later into the 90s.
Soon, money started flowing. Police could not take money from businesses, so they set up a private, nonprofit charity. Critics called this a dark money fund. The DARE board quickly filled up with 4 billionaires, 18 multimillionaires, lawyers, and 3 cops. It included a man later caught trying to launder money from a cocaine trafficking operation. It included the junk bond king, Michael Milken, who would later be indicted for serious financial crimes.
The key word was growth. Milken made the firm he worked for, Drexel Burnham Lambert, famous and rich. Who was this Pied Piper of corporate paper, this king of junk bonds? He was not born to the purple. Michael Milken was born 46 years ago into a middle-class family in Encino, California, in the San Fernando Valley. He was elected head cheerleader at Birmingham High School and was a national honor student. He married his high school sweetheart, Lori Hackle, in 1968. They lived quietly out of the public spotlight as his business prospered. The Milkens' comfortable world would begin crashing down around them in 1986. A federal investigation into insider trading on Wall Street snares this man, a financial high-wire artist named Ivan Boesky. Boesky, facing several lifetimes in prison, makes a deal with prosecutors that includes accusing Milken of wrongdoing. The federal investigation moves into high gear, and soon Milken, too, faces the threat of long-term imprisonment. In March of 1989, a grand jury indicts Milken on 98 felony counts. Among the charges, conspiracy under the racketeering laws, fraud in the sale of securities, and insider trading, using privileged information to make a profit at the expense of other investors.
The federal government accelerated the war on drugs. A new bill was amended to specifically set aside money for programs taught by uniformed law enforcement officials. This allowed DARE to expand using public funds. In the classrooms, DARE officers began using a new tool. The new curriculum challenged students to participate in active learning. An officer would guide the kids and set up a box. This box was for questions. But the officer would tell the children, "That might be a place where you may want to tell me something in confidentiality."
Okay, you've only done what? You've only taken care of part of the problem.
In the early years, DARE officers sent multiple kids' parents to the police for drug use. DARE had to create an internal policy telling officers, "You're not here to gather intelligence," but they also advised the officers, "If a child confides in you, get another officer to handle it."
That looks like about an ounce of cocaine we got on a plate there. $12,000 worth of coke just on a plate like that, and that's good money.
Was this an accident, or was it exactly what Gates wanted? Would it be in line with what we know about Daryl Gates to start a program that inspired children to become informants? Years went by. A 3-year independent study found DARE didn't work.
And so DARE kind of sows the ground of normalizing the idea of having uniformed officers on school campuses. And then originally, DARE officers in the 90s were not school resource officers. They were meant to be separate because they're like, we need the DARE officers to be the friendly, nice mentor. But later, post-Columbine and the shooting there, they start to then say, we need to actually have all our DARE officers be school resource officers as well. So over time, by the late 90s, early 2000s, they actually merged to where they say, we should actually have the DARE officers be school resource officers. And so they become kind of that dual kind of role where they're both enforcement, but then also supposed to be these teachers, right? And so it facilitates that kind of continued presence of police in schools that has the kind of long-term effects that you're suggesting about the kind of arrest of kids, the racial inequality of those arrests of kids in schools, the disproportionate policing of kids of color, right, and marginalized communities.
DARE tried to interfere with journalists and academic journals to prevent the truth from coming out. DARE protected its failure. Today, DARE has admitted that its old program didn't work.
Department Officer Brian Casey is still tough on crime. He fights the war on drugs by educating area school children through the DARE program.
The 17-week program, we teach the kids general life skills and the dangers of drug abuse.
For kids, Officer Casey is more than a role model. He's a friend.
I see the light bulb go up over their head. I know I've touched them. I know they got it, and that's what makes it all worthwhile.
It has a new program that seems promising.
Well, it's a new take on an old program. DARE, Drug Abuse Resistance Education, will now focus on America's opioid addiction.
In the 80s, there was an all-out war on drugs. The message:
just say no. This is your brain on drugs.
On TV.
Who taught you how to do this stuff?
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
And at school. Through the DARE program.
I was enrolled in the DARE program, but
back then, I'm old, so DARE was mainly to stop kids from smoking marijuana, cigarettes, stuff like that.
It was created in the 80s to steer kids away from drugs and violent behavior. Now, Senate Bill 284 wants to zero in on fentanyl. Here's why. The latest numbers from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention shows more than 81,000 Americans overdosed on the drug.
But the question remains, when you look at the facts, the political motives, the intentional use of a failed curriculum, the dark money, and the collection of confidential information from children, it raises the question, what was DARE really all about? It is up to you to decide.
Either way, both agree parents and DARE program leaders need to talk to kids about what they know, where they can find it, and how it will hurt them, and not try to sugarcoat it or delay that conversation, because lives depend on it.